quiet in compared to Daniel.
Dan's got a real loud voice.
I got a really nice microphone.
Nice. Very good. Very good.
Is that what it is? You're giving me microphone jealousy?
I guess, something like that. I'm like way zoomed in, too. That's kind of creepy.
Well,
That's all right.
All right, it's all right. My wood-paneled basement isn't really doing me any favors anyway.
Yeah. Let me turn on my lights here because I want to look good even if you guys don't.
There you go. I can't help it, man. I've got a bad lighting situation down here.
Well, I stream from this room, so I've put a little work and effort into the look and stuff here. So
yeah. I've been checking out the streams the last couple of nights and trying to make it really weird and awkward and being like, "Hey, what would it cost to get you to do some R&B? Will you do like a fucking Slick Rick song, or how about some Naughty by Nature? Will you bust out a Hot 16 for some people?"
If the price is right, how
many subs
I can be purchased.
I have no subs, but how many Subway, like Jocelyn likes to always say, how much for a sandwich, for the yours is ours is thing. How many footlongs do I need to buy you a franchise to get you bust out a Hot 16?
It's going to have to be at least in the 4 digits of a donation. But that includes change. So $99.99.
Fair enough. Yeah, first of all,
you're way better now.
Hey, I realized. So I've been super. Actually, hold on. Where are they? They're right here. I have some new guitars, some new toys that popped up in my collection in the last week. So I've been trying to record some of that, really terribly.
Okay.
Phil, I know you're all about the peripheral guitars lately. You're a PRS man now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have a couple. I'm not a PRS guy personally. Mike Martin has a bunch of deals going on with the PRS guys. I personally love the PRS guitars, but I think I have a preference for the ESPs.
Yes.
I've always been kind of partial to them.
Is that an 8?
Kirk Hammett
or a 7?
Playing, it's a 7 string. Yeah, 7
Just
string.
got my first 7 string.
But ever since, that's my first 7 string as well. And I really like it. I like the fact that it's in standard tuning, so I can play, other things that are without having to do too much messing around with tunings. But then again, there's so many people that tune in so many different, or that, now tune to so many different tunings. It's hard to just be like, oh, this is fine. When I started playing, it was like, all right, you've got your guitars that are tuned to E, then you've got some guitars that are tuned to B, and that was it. That was all people did. And this is, a long time ago, in the 90s, but, nowadays it's like some people, like we tune to C sharp half the time. Sometimes we're tuned to B.
B? Yeah.
Some stuff was tuned to D. Yeah. So, it's a lot of the older stuff, like the stuff that we do off Darkened or the stuff that we do off the Fall of Ideals. That stuff we do at C sharp now, because for Overcome and for We Are Many and The Order of Things and The War You Cannot Win and a bunch of other records we did at C sharp. And so we're just, trying to manage how many guitars we bring on tour, or the guys bring on tour, has been a kind of a thing,
Yeah, no, it's funny. Like I feel like, I don't know, Dan will probably agree with this with video game shit, and podcast gear, because I'm also in that realm too. But
I got no audio, guys. I had no audio there. You dropped out.
I dropped out. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I don't hear him either.
Uh-oh.
What the
fuck?
Makes
me feel better because then it's not me.
So it's just me. I have no audio.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. I can hear you.
Okay.
So none of you can hear me.
So we blocked John. That's awesome. It's probably better that way.
How did that happen, John? John, what's going on? What do you?
I don't know. So you can't hear me currently right now.
Somebody just as Techius on YouTube just said the stream can hear all three of us.
Oh, the stream can hear. Oh, hi.
I mean, it doesn't really help if you can't really hear what John's saying, but
hi Aztecia. I'm glad that you're here watching. She's a very good friend of mine.
Okay,
so
cool.
can you hear me now?
I can hear John if that sweetens the deal for anyone.
Okay, so Brady Bunch down below, you can't hear me.
No.
How about now?
Huh.
Nope.
All right. Well, I'll figure this out while you two talk, I guess. If you can hear me at least.
No, the main thing that I wanted to talk about is Twitch. I just started Twitch streaming, I don't know, like a month ago. And it's been rough a little bit, but not too bad. There's a certain amount of people that are going to become subscribers just because, not subscribers, but followers,
sure.
just because of the podcast,
Sure, yeah.
But, in your experience, what was it like kind of taking that step of like, you know what, I'm playing these games anyway.
Hey.
So why don't I just, hey, John's back. But
Hi.
It's like, I'm playing these games anyway. Why not just broadcast it out to everyone?
Well, I mean, I started my Twitch channel, or I signed up for a Twitch account probably a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now. And for the first year, I really didn't do anything with it. Every once in a while, I would jump on if I was playing video games. I have issues with an internet connection here at my house. I don't have an actual hard line.
Is that why you would always use your phone when I would come do interviews with you on the bus?
Yeah, I use my phone to play video games, but I also do that here at my house too. So I'm waiting on a permit for my town to approve the construction. But until then, I've been using, until that does get finished and the actual construction gets done, I've been using 2 different phones to stream, and it's worked out okay. But it's not optimal. So I didn't really put much thought into it when I first got my Twitch account because of the fact that I didn't have, an internet connection. I didn't think that I would be able to stream and, play video games, because you're asking a lot of a phone when the phone is handling your video game as well as handling handling a stream as well. Come to find out that it could do it all right when I was streaming from the Xbox. So I started doing that a little bit more earlier this year, and probably like in February, I think. And then one day we were at All That Remains rehearsal for the tour that didn't happen. We were going to go out with Helia. And I thought, why not just stream rehearsal and see if people are interested? And I had gotten maybe 5-10 people watching my stream when I play video games. Because, if people want to watch video game players, they're going to go follow Clean. They're going to go follow Dado. Sure. They're going to follow Ninja. They're going to follow people that they know. But when I put up an All That Remains rehearsal, we got there's probably like 50 people. And I was like, whoa, maybe there's some interest in that. So I went and brought my phone home and I was shooting. And so I was like, I got to clean a rifle tonight. So maybe I'll just do one of those just chatting streams.
Right.
And a bunch of people jumped in, and I was like, well, that's cool. And so I started looking into actually streaming regularly. And at first I was streaming from my phone, and I had purchased like a webcam and a few things to get my stream started when I initially thought I was going to stream. When I first got the Twitch account a couple of years ago. And so I had some stuff laying around, and I was like, well, maybe I'll go ahead and I'll try and put a little effort into this and see what happens. And so I bought a computer, PC for streaming, not something extravagant. It was a pretty basic thing, but it would handle, streaming for me, and people responded well. So I was like, well, let's see what else people would be interested in. Would people be interested in, video games or chatting? And I did just chatting for a while. And then I thought, well, maybe people would like it if I set up the Pro Tools rig and I sang along with songs. And that's when I started to see a reaction, when people were like, when I could actually play songs and sing, then people started to really jump into the streams, and it started to really take off for something that was worth, putting some effort in, because it was entertaining people. And also, I love performing. That's why I'm in a band. Some people in bands love to love to write songs. Some people love to be in the studio. Some people just love being in a band because they want to be on tour, and they don't really care what they do, just as long as they can go and party after the show, or whatever. It's a social thing for them. I love getting on stage. So that's really the thing that I enjoy most about being in a band. And so the stream was kind of, a way for me to still perform in what kind of is turning into a new world that we're all getting used to living in.
I think one of my favorite things that you've been doing recently is, like, last night, someone requested a song, and you're like, I don't know this. And then you're like, I'm going to try it. And I was like, the balls to know that you wrote something and then be like, we don't play this. I haven't probably done this since we recorded it, but hey, fuck it, here we go live. And there was a little bit of a delay, and you you could almost see, like, you literally, like, almost like riding a bike after not riding the bike for a while. Like, we're like, oh yeah, I remember this. And you're like, oh yeah, it's like, it goes like, oh, and then, like, here's the singing part, and then you're like, but, like, there'd be, like, the weird disconnect where, like, you're like, oh shit, singing part now. Yeah. And then so, like, you'll be, like, right on the mic for the singing part, but then, like, when you have to scream, like, you're kind of far away, pulling your headset off for a second, and it's just kind of funny to watch you go through all of this in real time, to be like, this is kind of what I feel like tour rehearsals are like for a lot of people, but you just never see.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely puts me in, it puts me in a position where I kind of have to stay on my toes. There's a lot of songs that we record and then we never play live, or, we haven't played live. And so the people will be like, oh, play this song. And I'm like, I literally haven't tried to do that song in 12 years. Like, and we never played it live. It's like, there's a song called "The Song for the Hopeless" off of Overcome. So that record was written in 2008, and we've never played it live ever. So I definitely don't know how that song goes anymore. So I would have to learn it again. And at some point, I'm going to have to do it, because people have asked for it enough, where I'm going to be like, all right, time to, earn your sub there, Labonte, and do it. So
it's funny, and I haven't. It was so hard over the last, like, week or two of knowing we were going to do this and not bombarding your stream with questions, because I was like, fuck, I gotta save some shit for this. But it was like one of those things where, does that actually, with basically the music industry, the way it's kind of going with live streams right now, kind of basically being the new quote unquote norm, has that informed you maybe to not be so rigid when you go back to touring, to maybe not be so rigid with the set list, and or to incorporate a lot of shit that maybe you weren't aware that fans really wanted to hear?
I haven't really given it a lot of thought, to be honest with you. I'm not resistant to the idea at all, but I'm one of 4 other guys. So it would.
No, you're totally the only dude. You're the front man.
I mean, I'm the front man, but if they don't want to play it and they're like, up yours, I'm like, oh, what am I gonna do? So
play yourself.
Yeah, I could just be like, well, screw you guys. I'll go get the Pro Tools rig and I'll bring out the MP3 and y'all can.
I'm Phil Labonte and the All That Remains.
I am literally all that remains. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just me. I'll get out there and do the jig. But I haven't really thought a whole lot about it. We definitely do the songs that people respond to the most. And I mean, there's some songs off the order of things that I get people requesting a lot that are a bit of a surprise. That might get into the set. I'm not against the idea at all. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't know for sure. And I mean, to be honest with you, I'm a bit of a pessimist, and I'm not 100% sure that there's ever going to be touring again ever. I'm not sure that the country's not going to go up in flames. So
I mean, that is a valid concern. If you'd have told me that last year, I'd have been like, "Oh, you're crazy," whatever. But like, yeah, I mean, here we are, all sheltering in our basements, except maybe John. This dude's always talking about
spare bedroom.
There you go.
Something actually that I don't remember if I asked you. This is so weird. Like, leading up to this, I was like, this is the first time I'm going to not talk to you in person. This is very weird for me. Because, like,
right?
You are one of the few people that's been on the show as much as you have, where I have a very personal connection with you, because we've done every single one of these in very close proximity to each other. And so it was weird, because I was like, now I know what Dan feels like, where I'm like, granted, I'm not doing this to you, where I'm like, hey, I'm John. Can you? And that's my wife texting me, so maybe I shouldn't put that on the feed. But regardless, I don't know if she texted. But it's one of those things where, I know one of the last times I texted you, it was I think the second tour that you had done with Jason, and I know the big thing was, that I had asked you was, is basically, are you guys writing new material? Are you guys at that point? But like, now I'm actually, as I'm where we are now, and seeing a lot of the live streams, and as you were just kind of saying, like, what people doing on your Twitch streams, like asking you to cover various different stuff. Something I never really thought of is Jason kind of coming in and incorporating maybe some new blood to be like, oh, you know what fucking song we should fucking incorporate into the set list, and invigorating you guys to want to maybe play some shit that you haven't played, some deep cuts or really old shit, because Jason's excited about it and it makes you excited to play the songs too. Is that something that's happened?
Yeah, Jason's brought up songs that he wants to do, and we definitely are. We definitely brushed a few off that we haven't done because he wanted to. It's tough to get together for us because we're kind of spread out across the country. Jason's in California, Aaron lives in Florida, and then me, Mike, and Jason Costa live here in New England. So for us to get together and stuff, that's not really happening. Me, Mike, and Jason Costa can get together. The other guys, not so much. And Richardson's still writing his solo record. So he's still kind of neck deep in that. So we haven't really put a lot of, we don't want to be like, yo, dude, what's going on with writing, blah, blah, blah. Like when he joined the band, we were very much like, look, we've been doing this a long time. So we can handle being in All That Remains and taking care of All That Remains. You do your thing. We fully support you having your solo career and stuff like that. We don't want you to feel like we're going to make demands of you. So for us, it's just like, when you are available and when you want to come contribute, you're welcome. If you can't get the time or don't, I mean, we've written 9 records. No offense to Jason, but we can do it if Jason isn't capable of coming to do it. We got this. But again, we want him to if he can. But it's just a matter of if his load is, if his workload is too much, then we're not gonna be like, oh dude, or come on man, but not be crappy about it. Like we're totally like, we get it that you have a solo career, and you're welcome to contribute as much as you want or can.
So I have one last question, and then I'll kind of turn it over to Dan, because I've had a lot of experience getting to talk to you solo. What's interesting about that I know Jason's very prolific in doing like online covers, doing a lot of there's just basically streaming of stuff. Mm-hmm. Did you go to him at all when you started thinking about doing your own like streaming stuff, like to kind of get some tips or anything, or was that just something you just kind of meandered into on your own and kind of learned as you went?
I kind of looked at, I watched what he was doing, and I was like, oh, that probably would work for me. That would probably be a good thing. The idea of of running a Pro Tools rig and just running the songs and singing along with them kind of came from Jason, because he does that stuff on his stream and on his YouTube channel and stuff. So there's ideas that I've taken from him, but as far as having an online presence and the things that you do to help grow your online presence, like, it's not that I haven't taken ideas from him. It's just that there's kind of a formula. Like I use my Twitter and my Instagram to push to my YouTube page, which I'm trying to grow. And the YouTube page, I promote the Twitch stream, and I'm working on getting some merch and stuff for, just personal merch on my YouTube page and all that kind of stuff. So you use different platforms, the different platforms to feed into the other ones. So the Twitter and the more, Twitter's kind of an immediate platform. So you put it up and you put up a tweet and it's there and it kind of goes away. But I use that to kind of direct to my YouTube page, which has got clips from my streams, and it's also got links to my Twitch page, which, because that's scheduled, I've got certain times when I'm actually streaming. So I use the different pages to try to direct to other pages to really kind of get people involved in what I'm doing and build the community that way. I've got a Discord, which it's discord.gg/filltheremains. And I'm Fill That Remains everywhere, whether it be Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, Discord now, wherever it is. If you search Fill That Remains, that's going to be me.
Well, that pretty much answered what my question was, because I was like, what's the day-to-day? And the answer, pretty much like you said, is diversifying of your online presence and shopping. I mean, that's the main reason I started a Twitch and started a YouTube and made sure I was on every social, sort of thing, because it's almost like the way I've heard like successful streamers describe it as a diversification of income streams. Mm-hmm. Some of those guys actually make money off of Twitch, or they get donations, and then they get ad revenue from YouTube, and they get ad revenue. If you're a musician, obviously you'll get revenue from streaming services. 8 whole pennies of it, but
not 8 whole pennies, 8/10 of a penny.
That's right. I read that wrong. Yeah. But I mean, that's got to be a really tough adjustment to make. I mean, so I guess if I'm going to roll into something else, I would wonder what the day-to-day is for a band now, like All That Remains, in that, like, I mean, you guys having like band meetings still, or like how does it even work when there's really nothing going on other than, maybe some creative process going on, but like, do you guys like what is the day-to-day like for being in a band, like a successful band, through all of this?
I practice guitar a lot now. We me, Mike, and Jason Costa had been getting together fairly regularly up until my dog broke her leg, and so I had to stay here and take care of her because I'm the only one around and I can't leave her alone.
Right.
So up until that happened, Mike, Jason Costa, and myself had been getting together regularly in Westfield, bouncing ideas off each other, and also trying to get everybody up to speed on running a Pro Tools rig and stuff. Old guys. So,
right.
we've been down in Westfield with our an engineer that we worked with, Jim Fogarty. He's worked on a ton of All That Remains stuff. He's written some of the cool musical interludes and stuff like that. You hear him all over our stuff, to be honest with you. But we've been working with him, just trying to learn how to run a Pro Tools rig more in depth, and coming up with ideas and some little demo ideas and stuff like that. So we had seen each other regularly. Obviously, again, Aaron's in Florida and Richardson's in California, so there hasn't been any hangs with those guys since last year. So
wow.
Yeah, it is what it is.
What was the biggest thing that you had planned for this year that didn't end up happening?
OnlyFans.
Hey, I was going to ask about the OnlyFans later.
Sorry.
There was no plan for an OnlyFans.
Bubbles probably could sell an OnlyFans.
I think that he might have, but I don't think that he was interested in it. He lives with Franz. So
I know he has an OnlyFans, and I know that's why I made the joke.
he's in that house of debauchery, so you know. But you know, we had the Helia Tour. We were talking about back in February. We were talking about planning a tour for this fall, and I mean, I'm not a psychic, or I don't claim to be able to see the future, but when COVID kind of hit here, I had heard stories about it in January, and I bought my first mask in January. I was like, I don't think this is going to be good.
Right.
And so I had been kind of bracing myself for it. We were rehearsing in February, and I'm thinking, we're not going on tour. And I didn't say it because I didn't want to say it, but I'm like, I don't think we're going to go. I think I was watching what was going on in China and paying attention to some YouTubers that kind of were a little ahead of the curve. And I was just like, this is going to get bad. So
dude, it was weird for me because like I was on that Kill Switch tour interviewing JB from August Burns Red and then JFO, and like the talk of that tour, like, and it's weird because like I'm not trying to be like, oh, I was at the epicenter of some bullshit, but like what was wild is like I did the interview with JB, and that was at like we'll say 2 p.m. and I cut it out of the interview because like we agreed that like it sounds very it sounded very in the moment, and you're like, I think it's bullshit, whatever. But then as everything happened like a day later, you're like, whoa, we sound really misinformed, so like let's cut that out and like not be douchebags basically. And 2 hours later I'm interviewing Justin, and it went from, yeah, I think we might have a couple of dates where the capacity of the tour goes from, we'll say 5,000 to maybe we got to look at a 2,000 capper or a little under, to by the time I'm talking to Justin, like no, like straight up like, well, Oregon's canceled, and some of the other West Coast states, we're looking at maybe having to do a 200 cap room total. Like, and it's wild to just see that 2 hour gap between when I talked to JB to talk to Justin, how much information had come into the touring world, like their world, where they're like, yo, and then literally the next day, whole fucking tour is canceled. Everything's canceled. And it was wild because it's like, I had people who were like, hey, like the news, I when I talked to Justin, like it made news and people were like, this happened the day before the whole fucking everything went under. And I was like, it's weird that is kind of the narrative and the story that's getting picked up is this is one of the last interviews that happened before the whole touring industry went away. Yeah. And it's kind of cool because you're like one of the last ones apparently that happened in person, but then you're also like, fuck, like I saw what it did to that tour.
So dumb. I was out in the middle of everyone. Yeah.
But it's also one of those things where you just kind of see, like, at least for me, like the not advantage, but the perspective of what it's doing to a tour in real time. And that was fucking wild. I'll always remember that. Like, to me, like, you know, in light of 9/11 just happening and like, you know, asking a bunch of my coworkers at my job who range from 5 years younger than me. So like I graduated in 2002. So like that was my senior year. I was in sociology class. I remember when it happened. And then I started asking people like, where were you when this happened? And hearing people were like, I was in 7th grade, to even somebody who has been with the company that I work for 22 years. And they're like, I was literally standing right here boxing up an order for so-and-so. We pulled in a TV on a fucking cart and watched the second plane go through the towers. And it's just interesting to hear the different perspectives of where you were, where we all were when this one national event happened. And I feel like COVID is probably going to be that next thing for us, where it's like, where were you when basically the world stopped because of COVID? For me, tour. And that's really weird to think of, but it's kind of serendipitous because it's so much of my life now that like I had to do a job interview today going into my wife's job in the pharmaceutical world, and someone was just like, you know, asking me questions about, you know, my current job and all this kind of shit. And I was just kind of like thinking about like, well, if I get into the pharma world, like my whole, like the perspective on what's happening is going to completely change, more so than it already is with my wife being in the industry, because I'm going to be first. Like, I know so I know I'm kind of jumping all over, but like they just got a grant for $160 million for their new facility to hold the line for the COVID vaccine. And basically, if I get this job, that's going to be what I'm working on the production line, is basically the shit for the COVID vaccine. My dad works for an hour and a half away in Kalamazoo, works for basically a hospital supply company. So like bedding and over tray tables and so forth. My mom works for one of the biggest hospitals here in Michigan for like heart transplants and shit like that. So like basically my whole immediate family is involved in what's happening right now in different facets. And I feel like, for me at least, this feels like 9/11, where it's like, I'm never going to forget this time period in my life.
I don't think anyone's going to really forget it. So
where were you? Sorry to cut you off. Where were you when you got I know you already kind of said like you kind of were aware this is probably on the horizon, but where were you when the news basically hit that like, yo, everything's fucking shut down?
I mean, I don't recall an instant, the way that, like, for me, it wasn't like 9/11.
Okay.
In that it wasn't, hey, you just found out. Like I said, I kind of was like, this is going to be bad. So for me, it was over the course of time, over the course of, a couple of weeks. So it wasn't oh, hey, you got this information this day. I don't remember exactly where I was when I found out, because again, I kind of had resided myself to things are going to get weird and they're going to shut stuff down at least a little while before it happened. I mean, I'm one of those guys that, I live in the woods intentionally. I moved to New Hampshire in 2011, and I bought my place in 2013, and my house is, I've got a decent sized lot. Well, I've got a pretty big lot, and my house is in the back of the lot. It's not out on the road. And that's part of the reason why I bought. You can't see my house from the road.
Yeah, you were just talking about that due to some bullshit going on with you.
You have one of those signs out there that says like, trespassers will be shot, survivors will be shot again.
No, because then that tells people that there's a house there.
Oh, okay. So it blows your cover. Okay.
Dan, have you not seen the bullshit that Phil's been going through on Twitter? He talked about this very recently.
I have not. I'm sadly not on Twitter as much as I should, as much as I just went on and on about diversification.
It's probably a good idea. Twitter's a cesspool. They say never, never read the comment section of any particular website. Twitter's the comment section.
It's only the comment section. Yeah.
That's what it is. It's the comment section for the whole internet. So it's just full of,
Can't be worse than Reddit. Yeah.
No, it is. It is worse.
I don't know. I don't go to Reddit. So
Reddit at least has cool porn, and different subcategories based on your fetishes. I don't know that Twitter does.
No, Twitter. I mean, I guess you could probably follow certain hashtags.
I mean, I do.
On Twitter, yeah.
Actually, to make it less weird and less super serious at this point, because I don't really want to talk about people stalking you out as you have been posting on your Twitter. But one of my favorite things was you posted a story, or no, I'm sorry, you posted a photo. I think it was back in MySpace. It was like a candlelit photo. There was some shit on like a dresser. It almost looked like just a random photo of like your dresser, like your nightstand. And then someone was like, "Yo, I have this as my whatever." And you're like, "I hope you're like." That's cool, but like you realize you have like a topless photo of my wife at the time. Like, because apparently
I wasn't married when I was on MySpace.
Okay.
So
I just remember you being like, there's a semi-nude photo basically that like you don't notice it until you zoom in way the fuck in, that you'll notice like that photo on my nightstand or whatever is like kind of semi.
This is the story that you chose to make things not weird?
Sure.
That's classic John for you.
Do it. Well, that was the thing is you're basically like someone's like, oh, bro, you're my inspiration and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, you realize you have a photo of like my current girlfriend, like sort of topless or whatever, like as your background. And then the person's like, oh my God, no, I'm so sorry. I'll get rid of it. And you're like, well, it's fine. It's just weird.
I'm not sure. I don't remember the picture. I don't remember when it was.
The only thing I remember, and like this may not describe anything, is that I think you were dating someone who was actively serving overseas.
That would be my ex-wife.
There you go.
My ex-wife. So, but yeah,
well, that was weird. Yeah,
that is. So, yeah, I don't recall. It wasn't a boobs out photo. I know that because I would never have put that on the internet. So.
Oh, come on.
Like, I mean, this day and age, one of the lessons that I've learned too about like putting myself out there as far as like, you know, like right now you can see my basement, you know,
yeah,
you can see all the stuff or whatever. And I remember whenever we first started doing the podcast, I was very open about like where I lived. Like I didn't give my address or anything, but you know, I'm just like, yeah, if you're out and about in St. Louis, you know, you might run into me, you know, at some point. Hopefully not in a car, you know, but like that sort of thing. And then I had this lady who messaged me one day and was like, hey, you know, my son is a big fan of your podcasts, you know,
more than one.
Yeah. Well, and I told,
not this,
not this one. Yeah, definitely not this one, but, you know, just a huge fan of your podcast, listens to all your episodes. And you know, we live pretty local to you or whatever. And I told him that for his birthday that, you know, we would come down to the studio and hang out with you like for a day. And I was like, oh, you just told him that, huh? Like
you invited yourself to my home.
Wow. That's I was like, yeah, you know what? I was like, I think this is like back last year. I was like, you know, I think Zayo's coming to town for the first time in like 20 years or something. I'll be there if you guys want to come by and say hi. You know, I'd love to do that, you know, all of that. And she's like, no. Like for his birthday, we're gonna yada. And it is so heartbreaking when you have to get like out of the kind of like break the niceness with somebody and just be like, listen, no, this is not gonna happen. And you shouldn't have told this. You should not have told your kid that this was something that was going to happen because it's not, you know. I go and do public things all the time. I go to shows, you know, I tell people about, you know, because I mean, John and I go to shows to interview people and do stuff all the time. But it's one of those creepy things where I was like, man, the fact that this person was able to pinpoint me to that level and like having to shut down my personal Facebook and not, you know, and like not shut it down, but like lock it down, you know, to where, you know, cause I'm posting pictures of my kids all the time and stuff like that. So, I mean, it is kind of like, it's scary to the level of like, even whenever I started a Twitch, I had to call like the local law enforcement and just be like, hey, just letting you know, I stream online. If somebody calls you as a joke and says I'm a terrorist, or
that's
you know what I mean?
Really, really smart. That's really smart. Really, really smart.
Yeah. If somebody calls you and says something, you know, like just know that it's because they saw me online and they're just saying this because they're trying to do something funny to them. But yeah, so I mean, it is scary. I know, John, you're trying to lighten up the conversation. I got super.
No,
scary.
Actually, so
it's
right. No, I was going to say, I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast, and I'm kind of weirded out about bringing it up now, just in case I'm inviting weirdos again. So
here you go.
Did I told you, Dan, and Phil, probably you get this all the time, but it's weird for, like, as we're kind of explaining, weird for us. Have I ever told you about the person who contacted me via our Skype phone number, basically saying that they fingered my wife at a bar that we go to, and it was a phone number that was not local to here in Michigan? And then I was trying to figure out who it is, and I was like texting people I know personally to be like, yo, like, do you know this fucking number? Like, who potentially is this? Because yes, I talk about us, my wife and I, at the time I talked about my wife and I going out quite a bit into some of the bars we go to. And I've since stopped doing that because of this, where someone sent me a Skype message to the podcast phone number, not even my phone number, but the podcast phone number. And then we're telling me like all kinds of wild shit about my wife. And I was like, yo, I'm not okay with this.
Yeah.
And like that really started making me be like there was a podcast I did as a guest, and someone's like, "Where can people find you?" I was like, "I'm good. No one can find me anywhere." Like, because and I even said like, "Is this like you don't have socials?" Like, "Oh, I have socials, but like this just happened to me, and like I'm not trying to give anyone an avenue to fucking come at me because like straight up, Phil, Dan, like." Dan, you're married. Phil, I believe you're married again. Like, I'm married. I've been married. Like, we're going to approaching 5 years in December. Like, I've been with Bridget for 10 years. I will straight up fucking murder somebody if they fucking do that shit and I find out who it is. Like, I will go to jail for that shit. Like, that is not okay. That is not cool. I'm not a tough dude. I don't own guns. I'll fucking kill you if you do some shit like that to my wife. And it's definitely made me a lot more leery of sharing some of my personal life, which is a bummer because like when I listen to like Joe Rogan and I listen to a lot of podcasts I listen to, the thing I love most about it is getting to know the people as individuals and getting to know their lives to kind of have a common bond with these people. But if you're going to fucking be weird and send some wild ass shit about someone's significant other, that is not okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine line that you should walk when it comes to how much information you give out. Like, I don't have a problem people knowing the town that I live in.
Even that's kind of weird a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I live in a small town, and again, my place is hard to find. And even if you were to find out what my address was, you're not going to accidentally.
Yeah, that's what you said on Twitter.
Yeah, like you don't whoops-a-daisy onto my front lawn. You know, my driveway is literally 7/10 of a mile long. It's almost 3/4 of a mile long. You're gonna realize, like, if someone's accidentally going up my driveway, there's plenty of places to turn around, and you're gonna realize, yeah, I'm going somewhere the wrong place. You know, I'm not where I thought I was going. I'm not going there. And I have friends, because it's such a small town, I have friends that work at the post office. I have friends that know me at the town hall. I go down to the town hall to pay my taxes, and I write the check in the town hall and stuff. Like, people know me. I mean, if you go to the Hinsdale, New Hampshire Wikipedia page, it says that I'm one of the notable people that are from Hinsdale or whatever. So it's and that's fine with me, because of the fact that my house is so isolated. But there's been people that have gone to the post office and tried to get my address. Hey, I hear blah, blah, blah. And there have been people that have, sniffed around. And, I'm a politically vocal person. And there have been people that have, made threats. And I've had to have extra security at shows. And I definitely make it very clear that I am, I'm a gun owner, and there's, if anyone knows anything about me, if they know enough about me to want to come after me, they know that I'm a gun owner, and I'm very open about, training. And I, because of the fact that I am a gun owner and I'm an advocate for the Second Amendment, I also think it's really, really important that you stress the responsibilities that you have as a gun owner. So you get training, safety, blah, 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 all those things. I'm really vocal about that stuff. So, if someone is looking to do me harm, they know what they're getting into. If they know me enough to dislike me, they know me enough to know that they're not looking for anything good if they show up at my house. That nothing good is going to come of that. And it is what it is. I don't know that I think it's a good thing that people feel that way, or that's kind of a known thing, but I'd rather it be known than someone think it's a good idea to show up on my property unannounced or something.
I think it's just one of those where it's weird because like Dan and I are by comparison, nobody. So the fact that people are,
you have a platform.
But that's the fucked up thing is it's wild. Like Dan hasn't I'm not negating Dan's experience and I'm not negating yours at all. But like, as soon as I got that message where someone's like talking really fucking fucked up things about my wife, where I was like, okay, who the fuck is this? And I swear to God, if it's someone that I fucking know, next time I see you, I'm not even going to think. I'm just going to beat the fucking shit out of you blindsided. Like, I'll deal with the repercussions later because that is not okay. And
Yeah.
the fact that like the internet gives autonomy to people like that, to where they can say shit like that to myself, you, Dan, whatever, or just assume that because we're online personas, even though this is who we actually are, that's the fucked up thing where I'm like, no, like, you should respect the boundaries even more because we're willing to let you get a glimpse into our personal life, you more so than us. But like, that was definitely something where I was like, oh fuck, like, I'm nobody who has nothing to gain from, like, if anyone were to fuck with me, there's nothing to gain. But the fact that people are fucking with me and fucking with my wife, it's like, why? What is there to gain from doing that? Absolutely nothing.
I mean, it's just a sad person that wanted to get a rise out of you, and they did. So, like, I mean, if they're listening to this right now, they're like, got you, Beatty. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things where, you know, you just kind of have to not let it bother you. I mean, like, for me, like, you know, the comment section idea, even at this day and age, man, I don't pay attention to downloads. I don't really read the comments anymore. I used to be so hardcore about, like, I'm going to respond to every comment. And I'm going to, you know, jump in there and defend whatever my position is and all this stuff. And I've just found over time that is ultimately super draining and takes away from what you're actually
exhausting. It is exhausting. Like, I fully understand that. It is just so tiring to feel like you're trying to run defense all the time or defend a position all the time. Yeah, it took me a long time to realize you don't have to argue with every person that comes to your page or whatever. You know, I used to be really against blocking people on Twitter and stuff.
Yeah.
Used to be like, no, you know, I don't want to do that because blah, 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 you know, for whatever reasons I justified it. And then it does get tiring, and it gets to the point where I'm like, why? Or it got to the point where I was like, why am I allowing people to have access to me in that way? I'm not like, no one's entitled to my time. I'm not obligated to give anyone my attention. It's a bit of a privilege. Like, there's not a lot of frontmen from bands that are as accessible as I am. Between between my Twitter and my Instagram and my my Twitch streams. If you're in my Twitch stream and I see your question, I usually answer your question. I have a Cameo. You can hit me up on Cameo and blah blah. You know, there's all kinds of ways that I'll interact with people. So to allow myself to just entertain people's negativity, it just became, I really kind of was like, what's the point here? Jamie Josta doesn't interact with anyone that doesn't follow him. And that's a pretty
That's his biggest bitch.
Yeah, that's a pretty good idea.
Doesn't even follow me, and he's coming and bitching on my timeline.
Yeah.
And I can't not agree with that. I can't not agree with that.
That's something that's part of where I got the idea from is, Jamie's right. If someone doesn't follow me and they jump in and say something or have an opinion on something or whatever, usually I'll just go ahead and block them. Like, if you follow me, then okay, maybe then we'll probably talk or whatever. But if you're just a rando who doesn't follow me or whatever and jumps in and says and has some kind of crappy opinion, and again, I don't block people that have a contradictory opinion. It's if you're crappy.
Yeah.
It's like, you can disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. I'm more accessible than 99% of the people that have a blue check on their Twitter account. So I'll interact with you, but be nice, be polite, even if you disagree. There's plenty of room to disagree with me. I know that there's a lot of opinions that I have that are very foreign to people. A lot of people don't, when I say get rid of the Department of Education or get rid of the IRS or we should abolish, the HUD, there's no reason to have a Department of Housing and Urban Development. The idea of abolishing entire cabinet level positions of the federal government, most people are like, what? How could you ever think of that? And so I understand that to some people, these are radical ideas. And if you want to know why I think these things, come and ask me. But just being like, oh, herder, if you get rid of the Department of Education, no one's going to know nothing ever. Like, get the hell out of here, you know,
Right.
like that, beat it with that shit, especially if you don't follow me, you know? So,
yeah. Well, let's flip
that's the
that on its
level.
head for a second here.
Sure.
How cool is it? How cool is it though to be able to have a direct line to your audience? You know, especially again, like with the Twitch streams and the Twitter, and people that follow you can ask you a legitimate question and you'll answer it. I think that's really, really cool in the sense that like you actually have a direct line to people that actually care about what you think. Like that's got to be super gratifying. And I guess my question is a little scary to kind of put yourself out there to that degree where it's like, yeah, I mean, if you want to come in and you want to be cool, anybody can ask you anything. Like, how hard is it to be open about things without worrying about all of the kind of external factors that goes into making a statement about anything anymore?
I think I'm so used to catching hell because, you know, there's a couple metal blogs that really don't like me.
Sorry.
And have never given me the benefit of the doubt ever.
Yeah.
You know, and have gone out of their way to hurt me. There's some metal blogs that have people that work for them that have gone so far as to try to do the whole cancel thing where they tweeted at my label and, hey, can you believe blah, 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 because they didn't like something. So there are people out there that have gone out of their way to twist things that I say or have said to make them as damaging as possible. So I'm not all that worried about that kind of stuff, just because I've been there, done that, you know. And I know that at the end of the day, the things that I say may sound like they're radical, but if you put thought into them for a few seconds, it's not radical. It's not that crazy. You know, the idea that people should be able to freely exchange their ideas without fear of losing their job, that isn't a radical idea. That's not.
No, not at all.
That is not some kind of crazy, out of this world opinion. And that's something that I've felt forever, and I've been saying it for a long, long time. The idea that you shouldn't punch someone because they have a horrible opinion or because they're a shitty person, you should not just, especially when it comes to politics. If someone insults you and it's a personal thing, you know, then at least I can understand why someone would be, you know, if someone's like for instance, you know, John was talking earlier about the stuff with, you know, someone said something to his wife. I get why you would want to punch someone. But if it's just like someone that's got a terribly shitty opinion politically, as soon as you start okaying political violence, then you're going down a bad road. And the reason why we have had riots in the streets for the past 4 months, or at least part of the reason, and there's people fighting in the streets, and a dude in Portland got shot because of his political opinions. The reason that stuff happened is because 5 years ago, people were saying it's okay to punch people that they didn't like. Because
right.
it started out with punch Nazis, right? That's what it started with. And I would have to say, no, you can't do that. You can't punch Nazis. And the reason you can't punch Nazis is because Nazis becomes Ben Shapiro. And Ben Shapiro, the practicing Jewish man, is not a Nazi. Like, they're not, like, it's not like Donald Trump is ridiculous and you can find him completely offensive. He's not a fascist. He's not a Nazi. So when you say it's okay to punch a Nazi, Nazis quickly become Mike Pence, you know, or Christians.
Yeah, you can just take the goalpost and move it to wherever you want. Yeah, and
then you end up with people getting shot in the street, and that's what's happening now. And that's why I was screaming. I would take heat for it. People would say that because I'm saying you shouldn't punch Nazis, that I was defending Nazis. I was never defending Nazis. I never defended Nazism. I said you shouldn't punch people over their political opinions because you end up with people getting shot in the streets. You end up with real political violence. And like I said earlier, you know, I'm concerned about where we're headed as a country. That's part of the reason, because our discourse has broken down so much that, and the hyperbole is so strong from everybody. I don't see an off ramp that gets us out of this polarization. Someone has to say, not just someone, but the powers that be have to stand up and say, these things are not okay. We have to be liberal. We have to be a liberal democracy. And it is illiberal to say, I'm going to be violent against people that I don't like, because there is no, fascism is not outside of our door in America. It's not. Right. It's straight up not. People get on today. I saw some crazy person saying, "Oh, we can talk about this when we don't have an actual fascist in the White House." It's like, if we had a fascist, you would not be able to say on the internet that he's a fascist. They would come and kick your door in and take you to jail. And we're so far away from that to say that it's a fascist does so much damage to our political discourse and our ability to communicate that we end up with people in the streets getting shot. After that guy got shot in Portland, there was another person somewhere saying, I do not feel bad that a fascist got shot. Right. I don't feel bad that a fascist died. Literally saying that. And it's like, you're asking for bad things. You're asking for bad things. And the people that have been to actual war zones, they're the ones that are the most vocal, saying, do not do this. They're literally begging, do not go down this road. I know dudes that have been overseas, and as my ex-wife had been overseas. War is not funny. War is not cool. And the United States is not immune to civil war. We've had one before. And if we have one now, or if we have one again, it's not going to be a situation where there's the dividing lines like there was in our last civil war. There's no North and South. It's going to be people disappearing in the middle of the night. It's going to be bombs in places you don't expect, because that's what was going on in Syria. Syria just had, their civil war that was going on. They had, their government was fighting with it becomes factions, and who's the warlord for this area. It is so bad and so terrible. And I'm really, really afraid that that's where we're heading. And I know that I've kind of got off on a tangent here, but it's because I'm really, really concerned. And I've been saying the same thing for 5 years, and I feel like people don't listen. And now we're starting to see people getting killed in the streets, and people going to other people's houses and showing up, on their front lawn. And that's not just the stuff that you see, the protesters. People went to Tucker Carlson's house because Tucker Carlson's a fascist. People go to Mitch McConnell's house, literally going to his house and standing out, in his yard. And I just don't see anything good coming from that. I don't see anything good at all coming from that. So I'm very, very concerned for the future of the country, and I keep thinking about, what's the off ramp? How do we fix this? And I just don't know that there is one. And so I'm really frightened for America, to be honest with you.
I have kind of a weird question, and it sort of stems from.
No.
Yeah, I know. And it sort of stems from kind of a conversation we've had on this podcast, with Doc Coyle, way back in, in the day, and just kind of something we've talked about with even recently as with Michael from Volumes. Do you feel like, we kind of talked about, I've talked about how, as early as MySpace, basically, having you be inundated with weird messages from people. Do you feel, because I think you're a little bit older than at least me. I know I'm a little bit older than Dan. I'll be 36 in 4 days. So,
maybe.
Yeah. And I think, Phil, you're at least 40, 41, 42?
45.
Okay. So
a day over 31.
All right. So you got 9 years on me. All right. So
you sound as good as you did when you were 31. I mean, come on.
Thank you very much.
But it's one of those things where, as I get older, I can't help but think about the past and a lot of the things that were and were not in my life. And, you know, remembering the first iterations of the internet where I was like, yo, the internet, I can play fucking Max Payne with bullet time as long as no one fucking calls my house line and ruins my experience.
Yeah.
But, you know, now we're at a point where, you know, and something that Doc and I have kind of talked about a couple of times he's been on the podcast is just basically the bigger picture of what has social media done to us as a people. So like collectively, the three of us all remember a time before the internet became what it was, and good, bad, or indifferent. You remember if you mouthed off to some people and you said some ignorant shit, you probably either at least get some sideways glances. Possibly you'd get into a fight over some shit, and maybe it would inform you to be like, yo, I guess I can't say ignorant shit to some people because like I get beat the fuck up. But with the internet becoming what it is and allowing people to have an anonymous voice, do you feel like that's the bad thing about the internet is that it's created a culture of people who are willing to just say whatever without any real knowledge, without any real research on the topic? And I guess even to the point of, you know, something, and I think this is kind of the bigger point of what I'm thinking of is, you know, you see so many people who are like, Phil, you're a fucking asshole, block. But it doesn't take away your voice. It doesn't take away anything that you stand for or believe in. It gets it out of their view. And so many people who are younger, I feel like now feel like it's like that's the world they live in. And that if you like, I've seen it even at shows. I remember the show you played at the intersection where someone's like, excuse me, I don't want to be touched. And I'm like, you're on the fucking floor and they're playing 6. I don't give a goddamn who you are. I'm fucking moshing and I might be crowd surfing. You're going to hold me up.
You might get kicked in the head accidentally too, you know? And not like intentionally, not like a threat, but like, oh, you know, head walking or something, right?
Sure, but it's like there, and like I'm joking and I'm taking it to an extreme, but like there is that point of like being all of us being from the hardcore scene. It's fucking baffling to me when I go to like an Every Time I Die show and people are like, please don't touch me. And I'm like, you're two people away from the fucking barricade. Keith's right there telling you like crowd surf, get the fuck up here, jump off. Like, hell no. Get the fuck in the back of the room if you're with that attitude. But like people would be like, well, then I'm blocking you. I'm blocking this. If it's not my narrative, it's not what I'm comfortable with. I'm going to block it and get rid of it. I feel like that's the culture we live in now. And I wonder if it's permeated into our politics where people are like, if I don't agree with you politically, then be gone and blah, blah, blah. And it's just created this world of people who have unrealistic expectations about what the real world actually is versus what the online world is.
I think that there's a lot of things in there. I think that so John Haidt has a website called the Heterodox Academy, and he's talked about the way that people, young people in particular, have grown with social media, and more than just social media, but with a cell phone, with being basically constantly plugged into the internet. So in 2008, the iPhone was released, and I was one of the first people to get one. And I was just like, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I think it was 2007. But I was like, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. This is amazing. And it took me a little while to figure out why it was amazing. And it was amazing because it allowed you to customize your experience. Everybody, as soon as everyone, you know, all my friends, everyone in the band, as soon as they saw the iPhone and stuff, they were like, that is so great and blah, blah, blah. And when they got their own, they made it different than mine. And that was the interesting thing about it. It allowed you to shape the internet for you. And as time progressed, I think that was where the idea of being in a bubble really, really started. So you've got, everyone gets a smartphone or an iPhone. And by 2012, I think it was when 50% of teenagers had a smartphone of some type, and that's when you started to see increases in suicide, teenage suicide. You started to see increases in depression, and all these negative consequences of being consistently plugged into the internet and having the ability to see only what you want, but also a curated view of the world. So everybody that, you don't see a lot of people putting up their bad days on Instagram. You don't see a lot of people putting up their bad days on Facebook or whatever. And so you have these unrealistic expectations or these unrealistic representations of life. And it wasn't just by famous people, because it used to be where only famous people had access to lighting and photographers and makeup artists and blah, blah, blah. So the famous rich people, they were the perfect people. And then everybody else was kind of normal, because you had Polaroids of everyone, and there was the flash, and you had the red eye and blah, 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 all these things that reminded you that they were imperfect and in reality like you. Then that goes away because of filters and Photoshop and all these things that you can do on your phone. And so again, it's a curated world of perfection, and then kids go and look at themselves in the mirror and they see themselves with all their imperfections, that everyone has, obviously. I'm fortunate, we're fortunate, in that we grew up before this stuff. So we got to kind of live in two worlds. And I was an adult long before the iPhone ever came out. I was blessed with two great parents that raised me, that loved me a lot and really spent time with me, and that were available. And when I was scared as a kid, they were there for me. And when I was unsure about something, I knew I could go to them and ask them questions, and I never felt like I was going to get in trouble. And so all these advantages that not everyone has, that even when I was growing up, not everyone had. But nowadays, 50% of marriages end in divorce, and there's really there's no substitute for a two-parent home. It's the best thing you can have for a kid. You can still obviously have a great life if you're a single, if you have one parent taking care of you. I'm not trying to dog anyone out or anything, but studies have shown that the best thing you can have for a kid, and the best advantage a kid can have, is two parents that raise them, that are present, in their life, not just, put them in front of a screen and say, go ahead, So I know that I'm super, super, super lucky and super fortunate in just that aspect. But there's a lot of things, I think, that go into what you're talking about. And I think that the smartphone and the fact that most kids don't have a family that they can, because even if you've got a family, even if you've got two parents, doesn't mean that your parents will talk to you. Doesn't mean your parents listen to you. Doesn't mean that your parents know how to be parents, So there's a ton of things that go into the struggles that young people have nowadays, and the smartphone and seeing the world through a smartphone is one of them, and it's really detrimental. And I do think that the smartphone and the constant access to the internet is a big part of why people live in a bubble, because they can control what they see and how they see the world, and they do turn off exposure to other ideas. And again, I'm super lucky. I've been all over the world. I'm an adult, and I grew to be an adult without the internet. I was 20 years old before the internet was something that people were really talking about a lot. 1995, the internet existed, but it wasn't like, there wasn't a whole lot of like you had in 1995, you could just barely send emails without knowing how to code,
Right.
So, and nowadays, grandma can make an email on her iPhone, or whatever. So I was an adult before the internet was ubiquitous. And so I got to, fortunate in that I can thank you. I got to live in kind of the two worlds. And so that again is a benefit that not a lot of people or not everyone has, especially, if you're 25 now, I was 20 years old when the year you were born, and you don't have memory of a time before the internet, and you don't know, you don't know what life was like when the answer to I'm bored was go outside, So, you probably don't know what being bored means.
I have one last question, and I'll let Dan either take over or we can start talking about Perpetual Doom, because that's something I definitely want to talk about. Something in my travels in the last, I'll say 5 years with my wife, like traveling all over the US, and now we're looking into traveling internationally in the next year or so, beyond Canada, since we're so close to Canada.
Beyond Canada.
Travel.
Well, I mean, like,
you're hoping.
Well, I mean, like straight up, like I felt like such a, I felt like such a prick when we went to Canada. My first time going to Canada, I was basically doing Shipped, but more or less focusing on the podcast. So at the time, the person for a job, and I was like, podcast, and they're like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, I mean, I do a podcast, and that's basically my job."
I talk to people on the internet.
Yeah, they didn't really like that. They pulled us over very quickly and made us get out and explain further what we were doing there. But yeah, but it's a thing though in my travels of going to West Coast, obviously living in the Midwest, being from the East Coast, going to the South, going all over. It's definitely informed a bigger world perspective of, at least just here in the States, how different people live. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that has given me a lot broader of a spectrum of what the world is actually like. And granted, the world as in just the US. So as such, because I know in my conversations with people, when I kind of explain, like, like one of my favorite places to go is Atlanta. Like, and I want to live there. I think eventually it's on my very short list of places I would live. And when people go, "What do you like about Atlanta other than the sports teams?" And there's a lot of things, but I mean, that's what everyone just assumes I like. But it's like, for me, it's like, I was telling my dad, I was like, it's just as progressive in a way that I can't explain. Like, until you go there, it feels progressive. It feels different than anywhere else I've ever been. And I love it because of the melting pot of cultures and styles and influences and so forth. Like, that's why I love going there. And I realized as an almost 36-year-old to tell someone that I love and I want to move somewhere because it feels more progressive than where I am. And it's just, until you experience that city and what it has to offer, I just can't tell you. I can't put into words what it is and what it feels like. It's just something that you feel when you're there. And I have now taken 5 other people with me who have experienced Atlanta for the first time, and they all walk away feeling the exact same way that I do. Like, and my wife does, where it's like, it just feels progressive in a way that we just can't explain if you've never been. So as such, as someone who has gotten to experience a lot of different cultures, a lot of different societies, a lot of different political regimes based on you touring all over the world, do you feel that has informed you more in your political beliefs to a point that's so hard to describe to people because they're so stuck in the one town and city that they've always lived in? Do you feel like that's a thing that is just so beyond people that they can't fathom anything beyond where they've lived their entire life?
Americans don't travel the way that most other people in the world do. It is not weird to talk to an American that has never gone more than 100 miles from their home. That is a very normal thing. That is very, very normal. Most of the people that I talk to that are from other countries have done some type of traveling internationally. I have friends that are from London, that are Japanese, that live in London, and they constantly go back to Japan. And one of them went to school in St. Louis and I think she currently lives in St. Louis. I have a bunch of friends that are from Australia that had planned on coming here to the States. People from all over Europe talk about traveling to all other different parts of the world. That is not normal for people in the US. Most people in the US, if they've been to another country, it tends to be Canada or Mexico for like some kind of weekend or holiday kind of thing in Mexico because it's fairly inexpensive to go to the all-inclusive places. When it comes to politically, I'm the kind of person that doesn't like the government. I'm the kind of person that thinks the government
Doesn't like, sorry to cut you off, doesn't like the government abroad, or doesn't like our government compared to what you see when you travel abroad? Just because it didn't quite, maybe I didn't ask that question very well to have you answer that.
Doesn't like government.
Okay. Straight up, just in general.
As a concept.
Okay.
Governments are the largest mass murderers in history. The governments in the 20th century, governments had killed hundreds of millions of their own citizens. That's not including just wars. That's just killing your own citizens. The Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, there were 8 million people in Cambodia, and then the Khmer Rouge killed 2 million people. So that kind of atrocity that governments are capable of, the war that we carried out in Iraq killed at least 500,000 people, at least. You hear about the war that's going on in Syria. The Assad regime has killed tens of thousands of their own citizens. Governments are constantly killing their own citizens. So government as a whole, in my opinion, should be as small as you can possibly make it and have as limited power as you possibly can. As the powers that it has should be as limited as possible, just because government is not full of good people. I think that the fact that everyone knows that the government lies to you, like governments lie to you all the time. And everyone's very quick to say, well, my team is better than your team. Well, I think both the teams suck, and I don't trust either of them. So that's my take on government in general. There are better governments than others. I don't think America has the best government.
What?
Yeah, I know, right?
Weird.
I think that America does not have the best government. America has great ideals that it was founded on, and it has fallen short.
Would you say the fall of ideals?
I was like, did he really just say the fall of ideals live?
I write all the lyrics. That stuff it comes from somewhere, and it's not just the stuff that I write about. It's not just, some people write about things that happened in history. Some people write about other things, or stories or whatever. I write about things that matter to me. And I think that the things that our country is founded on, when we live up to them, we're the best country that could exist, but we fail to live up to them consistently we fail. And I don't blame that on any one party. That both parties fail, both parties fall short. And a big part of that reason is because the ideals are so lofty. They really are the best that you can come up with. The idea that all people should be treated equally under the law, that all people are created equal, and that they have certain rights that come from their humanity. Just from the fact that they exist and they have agency in the world, they have certain rights that cannot be taken away from them, and they exist prior to government. And the only way that government gets, the only way that a government has its just powers is by the consent of the governed. That was a new idea. That was an innovation. And it's something that has spread throughout the world. Those ideals have spread throughout the world, and when they are most fully realized is when you have the most successful civilizations, the most successful countries. And again, this is not a pro-America thing. It's pro-ideas that America was founded on, and that America does fall short of. I don't want people to think that I'm blindly patriotic, because I'm certainly not. I'm under no illusions that we, that in our founding documents there is contradictions and failures, and there were compromises made to allow the formation of our country. So I'm not in any way blind to that, and I'm not trying to minimize our failures or try to say that we're just the best because we're the best and blah, blah, blah. That is not true. But the ideas that we're founded on are the best ideas that man has really been able to conceive of for when it comes to how a government should be organized. So I'm just not a fan of governments, because governments are made of people, and people have motivations that are not always pure and that are not always the best that don't always have their people and their citizens' best interests at heart. So I'm not a fan of government.
On a less heavy topic.
Sorry.
No. I mean, I love this. This is something, honestly, this whole thing is actually something, I feel like just when we're kind of getting into the meat and potatoes is something really cool and a really great concept. That's when like a TM comes in, knocks on the back of bus, and is like, "Hey, you gotta go, bro!" Like, and I'm like, "Okay." Like, I was just getting into the swing of things, and that's why I was really excited to have you. Like, once this kind of whole platform and then the live things kind of started, I was like I remember telling Dan, I was like, "Yo, we got to get fucking Phil on," because like Phil is someone who can talk about a lot of different things in depth and isn't afraid to talk about things. Like, actually, in a little bit full transparency on my part, something today, I actually, and I don't know if you're a fan of The Ghost Inside. I don't know if you've been listening to the podcast series they've been doing over the last month, basically everything that's happened to them, from the climb of their success to the bus crash that they had, dealing with the crash, and then basically them getting back to putting out the new record. And then they basically released a follow-up episode today or yesterday, basically kind of explaining everything that's happened basically since then with the guy who did the podcast. Andrew, the drummer for The Ghost Inside, lives about an hour away from me, and basically we've become friends over the last couple of months. So like we went out and had lunch a couple of days, or about 2 weeks ago now. And he was telling me like, yeah, we're going to do this podcast basically where we're catching up with the dude. And, as such, the day we dropped our record, basically we were going to like, hey, there's a Black Lives Matter thing movement going on. We're going to put out a shirt, and we're going to basically donate all the proceeds to BLM and some of these other things. And then the whole Rashad Jackson TGI thing happened, and just shit on basically all the goodwill that the band had built up about putting out their record. And so, and I'm only saying this because basically there's a podcast out, and it's me speaking out of turn, but basically during our lunch a couple of days before Andrew and the rest of the guys talked about this, they were saying like Andrew was very, very vocal and very, very what's the word I'm looking for? Very passionate about the fact that the things that happened with Jim, their bass player, where they basically had to either kick him out, or if they didn't, then they were labeled basically racist sympathizers and so forth. It was a lose-lose situation.
I'm not familiar with what he said.
So
I'm not.
Was it like 10 years ago?
About 5 years ago or so. Yeah.
Comment about a bus driver, and the comment apparently got all up in his face about it when it happened. But then after that, he waited until the day that they released their newest album to go public with this information.
And releasing a BLM shirt, basically supporting another.
It's a whole thing.
So basically, Andrew
Remember how much drama used to be in the hardcore scene? Like, seriously?
So basically, Andrew was stating, sorry, my wife's texting me. Basically, was stating that that they're in a fuck situation. Either basically the people who were like, "Why would you kick out your brother?" Everything you went through over the last basically 3 to 4 years of the bus accident and everything, like you guys are brothers. Why would you kick out your brother? Or the flip side of that, where it's like, what the fuck? You need to kick this dude out. And then he's saying that there are people in the industry, people that he considered friends, that are like, so you have to kick out your brother. You have to kick him out so you guys can go forward. And, him and the rest of the guys are basically saying, like, the label, the management are like, don't kick him out. This is just, internet outrage culture and all this kind of shit.
The label and management were saying no, huh?
Label and management are saying no. And the only reason I feel comfortable with saying this is because it's on the podcast. And that's what I said during lunch. I was like, wow, your label and management are like, don't kick him out. And they're like, absolutely. But it's a lose-lose situation no matter how we do it. So we gave into peer pressure and we kicked him out. But we don't want to. Like, that's our fucking brother. Like, we went through all this shit.
I can't speak for them, but if they don't want to, why are they doing it?
Because the public peer pressure, and as they said, without naming names and all that shit, their own touring peers, like Andrew on the podcast, and in my lunch with him with my wife, like he was like, when we made the press release, I didn't eat for like 2 fucking days. The day we released that press release, I fucking threw up because I was so anxious and nauseous and sick with the decision we had made to kick out a brother for something we didn't agree with, because we felt it was the right move publicly. And it's one of those things where when you see shit like that, you're just like,
I don't know that there's forgiveness.
Forgiveness in what?
Well,
forgiveness from the band perspective, forgiveness from the fans, or all the above?
From the people that are demanding that they kick him out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that those people will forgive the ghost inside. Like, they're probably always going to wear that, whether or not they kick them out. So I'm not taking a stand on whether or not it was the right thing to do or whatever.
Let me add one more wrinkle to this to just really blow your mind. So the person who called them out for having a used racial slurs 5 to 8 years ago or so.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter did what they do, went back through his tweets, saw that he called people faggots and so forth, and then we're like, so now you're canceled, dude. And he goes, no. I've changed. I'm not that guy. And then everyone was like, why do you get to change, but this person does not? So it adds a whole new wrinkle.
The whole going back and finding stuff that people have said, that's got to end.
Absolutely.
Stop. People have to stop doing it because because if you're going to judge people by their worst moment, nobody will be up to snuff. Nobody. And then at some point, it's like we all will just be like, okay, everybody's terrible at some point. Yeah. Because we're all human beings. Everybody said, I used to drink way too much. I used to be a raging alcoholic. I mean, alcoholism never goes away, but I used to drink till I was blackout drunk. And I would get on the internet and I would say some shit and blah, 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 blah. And, there's part of me that thinks it's kind of a mixed blessing, kind of a blessing and a curse. That
the fact that you would do that, or
that I had done that, and people, no one's going to go and be like, oh, Phil said this, and then people are going to be surprised. Like, everyone knows that I've said some shitty stuff, made some really off color jokes, and I'm not going to go, I'm not going to go reliving the stuff. But there's no question that I've never been a guy that had stuff going through a filter. I've never been the guy that was checking with management. Should I say this? Should I not say this? The only checking I would do would be with other people that kind of shared my sense of humor, and I would be like, "Yo, check out what I'm gonna say," or and I'd be like, "Watch how pissed off people get about this," Since I quit drinking, I don't do that stuff anymore because it's not productive. It doesn't, it doesn't
add value.
It doesn't add value to anything and stuff. So, it's been a long time since I have gotten buck wild, but my opinions, and stuff on things haven't changed. And so, I just think that the idea of going back and looking through people's history, and especially people our age.
Yes.
Because back 15 years ago, the internet was one hell of a wild motherfucker. It was the wild west. You go to you talk to people that have been to the B-board on 4chan, or you guys laugh because
Sup, girl.
Exactly. It's like, all right, so there's a lot of stuff that people wouldn't want to get out or wouldn't want other people to hear that they did. So I think the idea of canceling people and digging through people's history and stuff like that, it's like, man, you don't want to do that, because it's going to come for you. It's going to come for you, and it's not. I just don't think it's good. I think it probably lends itself to the whole
Pandora's box.
The whole thing that we were talking. Yeah, I mean Pandora's box, but like to the idea that we were talking about earlier, how people have this insulated view, and when you pop that bubble and show that the curated person that they present online is not that person, everyone should, or people should look at it and say, I could probably be that person too. Someone could probably find things I've said and really go to town on me. If they knew what I said in private, or they knew what I said, back before Twitter or blah, 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 so.
I think back then too, people actually had anonymity. Days of the internet, but you sign up for Facebook. I don't know if it's been so long since I signed up for Facebook, but it was expected that you would use your real name. And on Twitter, if you become some sort of personality, big name personality, you're expected, like you were saying, the blue check mark, people verify it's actually you, and all of this stuff. Back in the 4chan days, the message board days, the public, whatever, the BBS boards and all that stuff, way back when, people had anonymity, and some of the worst things I've ever seen in my life was posted, in those places. I think the closest you can get to that now is Reddit, where you can still be truly anonymous. But
4chan's still pretty anonymous, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all anonymous. It's still there. But I think the majority of people that are online are yourself. And because we're exposed for being who we are, I think it becomes this pissing contest, this holier than thou kind of mindset, where it's like, even though the goalposts on what was racism has changed, the goalpost on what was sexism has changed, or the goalposts on what has been acceptance has changed so much that people, because it's your name and your little picture next to everything that you post, everybody is just trying to present the best versions of themselves. It's almost as if we're we're all, we talk about genuineness and being an online personality, and that's like really, really, really hard. When I'm in a bad mood, like I was on a Twitch stream last night or 2 nights ago, and I just did not want to be there. I'd had a horrible day. My wife had called me on the way home from work and was like, yeah, the brakes in the car aren't working all of a sudden, and I don't know what to do. And it was, so I was like super pissed off. I didn't want to do it, but I was like, well, this is part of my job now, so I have to do it.
I want to interject one thing into that, and I mean, take it for what it's worth. It's just one guy's opinion. I personally have had struggles with getting my stuff to work. And
dude, last night with your dog, like you had to kind of cut your stream a little short because you had to get up early today to go to the vet.
Yeah, I mean,
and some people were a little pissed at you, and it's like that's shitty.
Yeah, that's what happens. But like, you shouldn't. If you're streaming, like I said, take this for what it's worth. I'm just some other person that streams, but like, I don't stream pissed. If I'm bummed out, I've canceled streams. I've been like, guys, I just can't do it tonight, because I'm there to entertain people.
Right.
And if I'm bummed out and I can't do that job, I am my own boss in that aspect. And so I'll just be like, I'm not doing it. I can't do it. So that's just my thing. So you do you. It's not my place to tell you how to run.
No, it's good advice.
It's
good advice. 100%. I think for me, it's just one of those, like, my biggest advice, all my friends and family and, random people reach out to me all the time. What do I got to do a podcast? What do I got to do the live stuff that you do or whatever? And my response is always just start doing it.
Just do it.
You just have to start doing it. Like, it sucks. Like your first few, my first podcast, they sucked. My first, my first anything, my first streams sucked. All of it sucked, but it got better over time. So it's one of those, I guess I just look at it as like I'm gaining experience points or something every time I do something. But to my original point, I think it's this everybody trying to present the best versions of themselves has now led to, it's like the tried and true. If you want to look better than somebody else, what do you got to do? You got to shit on them, right? You got to step on their head to get to some sort of higher plane of existence. And it's not real. None of it's really real, because once you get up to the very top, what happens? You look around, you're completely alone. Mm. Oh, look, I'm the most progressive person in the entire world. I'm King Ant on the anthill.
Yeah, you don't have to, if you're running from a bear, you don't have to run really fast. You just have to run faster than the slowest guy.
Totally.
And I get what you're saying. I mean, you don't want to crap on other people if you can, like, all that remains, if you deal with if you talk to the bands that we've been on tour with,
they hate you.
You're not gonna find anybody that's like, oh, all that remains treated us badly.
Right.
We're big about making sure that bands that we're on tour with are treated well. If there's something in the contract that we agree to, they get it. We don't try and cut corners. We definitely don't take advantage of bands. There are bands out there that that aren't all that cool to other bands.
Sure.
And don't take care of other bands on their tours and stuff like that. And we have luckily not run into a lot of them. And we were really fortunate to go out with some bands that were just the most class acts when we were young. So we went out with Guar for our first like real good tour, and
I hear they show everybody the ropes.
They were the most friendly, genuine, caring, just absolutely wonderful people. Absolutely wonderful. We were green as hell, and we showed up one day and they were like, "Did you guys get food?" And we're like, "What do you mean food?" And
I think we passed a Taco Bell on the way into town. Is that what you guys talking?
They're like, "Catering is up. Have you guys eaten?" We're like, "We can have that."
Right.
And it was a big deal to us because we had gone out with some other bands that were small, and we'd done some support for smaller bands, and when you're dealing with smaller bands, a lot of times there's not a lot to go around, so they're pretty lean about what they give you, and Guar just wasn't like that. And they, with their huge stage show and all their stuff and blah blah blah, they really did their best to make sure that we had, you know, had all the room that was available, you know, as much room as they could give us. They gave us, and so, you know, and then on top of that, they were all wonderful people to be around, and super friendly and super thoughtful, and I can't say enough good things about them. You know, they really are such a great band and such a class act, and they showed us how you should treat other bands that you're on tour with, and I think that, you know, the idea of stepping on bands to get ahead is just, it's one of the most small and weak things that you can do.
Yeah.
Kind of, actually, to finish up my Ghost Inside comment and to piggyback off of your Guar comment, and I'll even parlay it into you. So Guar and Michael, especially the new vocalist, was super cool. Like, I hit up the publicist very much like I had to do with you the first time. They're like, hey, like, I was like, am I talking to Michael as the person, or, you know, Blothar as the character? And they're like, oh, always character. And I was like, okay, that kind of sucks for me, because like it's all bullshit at that point. Like, there's nothing for real that I'm gonna ask. So I did what I do.
Conversation, by the way.
I know I did what I do, and Dan kind of gives me shit sometimes. Like, I literally prepared 2 sets of questions, like 2 to 3 pages of questions for Michael, because I wanted to talk to him as the person, and then I prepared dumb, stupid questions, throwaway questions for Blothar. And then he came in you know, during sound check. And he was like, hi, I'm so-and-so, because it wasn't a video interview. And I was like, straight up, I have 2 sets of questions. I did my work. I did my homework. I'm ready for either one. I would like to talk to you as Michael. If you want me to talk to Blothar, I'm totally prepared to do that as well. And then he like saw that I did the work, and I showed him I had 3 pages of questions for each. And he goes, let's talk to me. And I was like, cool, let's go. And as far as I know, other than Shane from Silverstein with his podcast, I have one of the only other interviews with Michael as the person. And it was exponentially better because, and I don't know if it's because I put in the effort and the work, and I was honest and upfront about what I wanted. And I treated him with the respect that I feel like he deserves as an individual, as a person in this band and the lineage that they have. But going back to the Ghost Inside, something I texted Andrew today is I go, there are a lot of bands who would be in the position you were, even if it's pre-recorded, to where they would be like, when asked about why you're kicking someone out of your band, they would just go, well, it just felt like the thing we needed to do. They wouldn't go, we had backing from the label, we had backing from the management, we had backing from all these people, and we made the wrong decision based on who we are as people and what we've gone through as a band. And I go, it's so fucking commendable to you as a person and to all of you. It shows so much of your character and who you are as fucking people. And I think that's the thing that gets lost in a lot of this is, you know, and coming back to you, a lot of people have actually come to me in the industry and just random people and been like, Phil's an asshole. I don't fucking like Phil. And I'm like, dude's always been super nice to me. Has actually gone above and beyond. I talked to Phil 3 times on one album cycle. There's no fucking reason for that. In a matter of 3 months, I talked to him 3 different times on 3 different tours on one album cycle. There's absolutely no reason why Phil should have even agreed to do any of the second interviews or the third interview. But he did. The dude has never done bad by me. He's going to carry exponentially further than anything else. And I was going to say, even with doing this, like where people are like, I just don't really like Phil. And I'm like, you cannot like Phil. Phil is unapologetically him. And in a day and age where so many people are two-faced and will say whatever it is to be appeasing to a wider demographic and a wider market of people, I would rather be friends with Phil. I'd rather know people like Phil, because that is more genuine and more interesting to me than people who will be two-faced and say whatever the fuck they think I want to hear or whatever people want to hear them say. And to me, that's been something I've always admired about you, and something at the end of every single time we've done a chat, you're always like, yeah, if I'm ever around, let's do another one. I enjoy talking to you. You ask me interesting questions, you come prepared, and it's a good time. And to me, the same thing is reciprocated. You don't hide behind something. You don't have canned answers. And I love the fact that at least in 20 some odd years of doing this, that you still approach this in a way that is honest and sincere. And I think that there are so many people who don't do that, and that is refreshing as hell.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Hold on a second. I think no, she's fine. You know, I imagine the majority of people that say that they don't like me probably don't really know me. At least not any.
I mean, to be fair, I don't know you either, really, but
I mean, I haven't really had the chance to sit down and talk with me any further than, you know, maybe they read stuff on the internet, which, I mean, I can understand why, you know, people would be like, I don't like that guy, if they go by what they read on the internet, because especially if they're going by what other people say, you know, I mean, it is what it is. I am a genuine, you know, authentic guy. I've said it before, I'm a really, really terrible rock star, you know, because things don't go through management. Things don't go through, you know, I don't have to get things okayed and make sure
Can I ask a really weird question as you're saying that? Because I hear some of these same things about me, and I'm wondering if it's because we're East Coast guys. I feel like East Coast people are just unfiltered, honestly.
You know, East Coast, I think there's some reality to that. When you hear me and Mike and Jason Costa talk to each other,
I heard you and Ken Susie on that bus after our interview, and I was like, oh God, I feel like I'm back home.
You would think we don't like each other. You would think we don't like each other at all. And me and Mike and, you know, me and Mike and Costa are like family, you know, we're like brothers. And
bless you.
After Gesundheit, you know, especially after Ollie passed away.
Dude, that was so fucked up for me. Like, I don't know if you remember this, that the first interview you and I did, Ollie was in the room with us just practicing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I remember when we posted the episode, and especially because I did an episode with Bubbles like shortly thereafter, I was like, I was in a room with Ollie like not that long ago, and we talked for a couple minutes afterward, and it just, I don't know, it was very, very weird. I've never had that kind of experience happen to me where like I met someone and then shortly thereafter a very tragic thing happened to them, and especially with all of you. So it was very, very weird for me. Sorry.
So it's all right. You know, after Ollie passed away, me and Mike and Jason were kind of like, wow, you know, it really made us appreciate each other more. And you know, we were in no way unappreciative of each other. We have a little ritual that we call the triangle of hate. Every day when we're on tour, and you know, we'll wake up, and about the time that Costa wakes up, because he's usually the last person that wakes up out of the three of us, you know, everyone goes and does their thing, and so I'll be sitting in the front lounge, and Mike will be there, and Jason and Costa's there, and when there's the three of us, we'll just sit down, and it kind of just turns into us talking shit about each other.
It's Festivus.
About you know, the airing of grievances, and also talking shit about everyone else. Everyone knows that as soon as they leave the room, we're going to talk shit about them.
That's such an East Coast thing to do.
It's very East Coast. It's very East Coast.
I don't know, man. I'm in the Midwest, and there's a lot of that goes on over here.
No, not to the level of East Coast people. We will. Holy shit!
And one of the things that we make clear is, if we talk shit about you, it's because we like you.
Yes.
There's nothing that we'll say that we wouldn't say to your face. And the talking shit is part of kind of that test. Like, can you hang? Like, can you hang out? Are you going to get butt hurt? Can you laugh at yourself? Can you see your faults? Can you admit when you have faults? You know, can we poke at you? And we will poke. And we'll test where, you know, what's okay and what's not okay, and et cetera, et cetera. Hey, thanks, David Bunn. Yeah, so I think that the East Coast is definitely definitely more abrasive than the West Coast and the South. With the first time that we were on tour, that Mike Martin was on tour with us, and we were touring in the South, and Mike was pumping gas, and someone got out of the car across the way and just said, "Howdy," and he goes, "Hi, nice day, huh?" Yeah, because you don't do that in New England. You don't do that at all. And you'll get a weird look from someone if they're just, "What are you talking to me for? Can't you see I'm doing nothing at all?" Like that's really, really weird. And Mike, it threw him off. I had a little more experience. I had a little more experience with that because my mom's from South Carolina, so I grew up.
Okay.
I spent a little time in South Carolina.
Southern hospitality.
Yeah, so I understand a
sugar,
little bit more where that's coming from. Yeah. Come here, give me some sugar, fix it, and do everything.
Yep.
But
hold on, do you like Scrapple? Being an East Coaster, do you like Scrapple?
Scrapple?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone who literally is from the East Coast likes Scrapple. I think it's a transplant thing.
Maybe.
I don't know. Sorry, weird change. I was just talking to my mom about Scrapple because they just went back to Delaware this week. So I was like, "Did you get Scrapple?" She goes, "Oh, I did." I was like, "Oh God, you're so gross. You're such a garbage person."
Fair enough. But yeah, I think you're onto it. I think you're onto something.
Yeah.
That would explain why I have so little of that. I spent like 1 month of my life on the East Coast, but
it's a different environment. Honestly,
I was born there, but I did not live there. It was a weird family situation. We moved back to Missouri pretty much like when I was a baby, so I'm only a little bit as unfiltered as John.
I have been told, I know my mom working at the job she has, and I have been told this a couple of times, we have a quote unquote East Coast attitude.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, you say that like it's a bad thing. I love it.
Say asshole.
Oh God. And I've definitely been drinking. So here we go. Asshole.
It's curt. It's direct and curt.
Yeah. Well, actually, as I like to call it, so here's a fun thing that Andrew from the Ghost Inside, and I know I wanted him to do this as a weekly segment for us. So as we'll segue back into Perpetual Doom and band talk, what is a German European honesty thing that someone has come to you and told you? So for instance, one of my favorite things in talking to a lot of touring people is when they go over to like Germany or Europe or whatever, and someone goes like, yeah, so last time you came here, you're much slimmer, and you play so much
slimmer.
You play much better. You're so sloppy. Why is that? Like, it's that German European honesty where like they're saying like the kind of really
being mean.
No, they're being mean, but they just are being them, and it's so unapologetic. So it's kind of refreshing, but it's funny. And like my other favorite thing is like when they're like, do you like, because they assume apparently you have merch just hiding somewhere where they're like, yes, I would like that, but do you have it in an M and in burgundy? I don't like the black.
I haven't had the experience with questions about the merch like that, but I mean, I think everyone that's gone to Europe and done interviews with Germans has had that kind of experience, and I don't think that it's just Germans, but it's definitely it's definitely attributed to the Germans, where they're very, very, very direct, and they will ask
frank you, as it were.
Yeah, frank and direct, and they'll ask you questions that might make you uncomfortable, so you should probably be prepared for it.
What's your favorite that you've been asked?
I don't know that I have a favorite. I can't think of anything in particular off the top of my head. I think that, like I said, I mean, it's like, last time you were here, you played these songs and you played them very well. You didn't play these songs this time. Why is that? How come you didn't play this song? How come you played this song both times? Last time I saw you, you had a different, different bass player or whatever or something, and it was better or whatever, that kind of stuff. So
you sang the song in a different pitch than you did last time.
Yeah, last time, so it could be any number of things. Like I said, I don't remember anything in particular, but I've definitely been posed with the the
German honesty.
direct. Yeah, the German honesty.
My favorite is I guess Andrew and I can't remember who it was from Straight from the Path. They were on Instagram, I guess, commenting on something, and then it was like, I can't wait. It was the dude from Straight from the Path being like, I can't wait for you guys to go back over so they can ask you weird questions. And then Andrew was like, yes, how come last time you were here, double bass very much better, and this time very sloppy? And it's like, obviously I lost my leg. So,
oh my God.
Yeah. That'll do it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like still one of my favorite things. That like even when we had lunch, because I watched a family get really weirded out when because Andrew has, I mean, he's very funny and he has a good time. And so like while we were waiting for lunch, he just like grabbed his prosthetic and turned it the other way, so like the foot was facing this way, and then put something on top of it, and he was just like, oh, what? Like, and my wife was like, oh shit, here's a spot. Like, can you guys hold it? We're like, sure, we'll stand there. And he goes, I'll hold it, and if someone gives me any shit, I'll be like, I'll flip my leg the other way and be like, what? You won't let a crippled person get a spot here? Blah blah blah. So as we were like eating lunch, he was talking about, and one of my favorite things he talked about on the previous podcast, just because people here in the Midwest suck, is he was like, yeah, so some dude held open a door for me at a gas station. He just goes, where'd it go? And I was like, what the fuck? That is like the most horrible thing I think you could ever say to someone with a prosthetic who's clearly like,
where'd it go, man?
Where'd it go? And he's like, and I was like, that's some German honesty if I ever heard it. Like, where'd it go? Your double bass was way better back then before you had lost it. Like, where'd it go?
It's like those people that email us and are all like, why don't you get James Hetfield on the podcast? I'm like, oh, dude, you know what? Let me call him. Hold on. You know? Let's just,
yeah, I get that a lot.
Do this.
So you should get blah 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 to do this song with you, or you should get this person on your stream. I'm like,
sure.
I stream from my house in New Hampshire. You think he's just gonna come here to hang out and stream? You know?
Yeah,
all that kind of stuff.
I love after doing some of these interviews where people are like, they'll comment like the person's actually reading, and I'm like, sorry, Phil's not reading the comments on our YouTube channel. Like, it's not happening.
I got a super nasty email the other day when they're all like, why didn't you ask Chuck Billy more about whenever he had COVID? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't really bring people in and talk about their personal health issues. You know, like,
right, yeah.
It'd be kind of weird. You know, like. Well, you should have asked him more about it because, you know, I care about that sort of thing. I'm like, well, I mean, dude did a lot of interviews. I'm sorry I chose to just talk about their record with him. Yeah,
Start your own podcast.
Well, everybody's doing that. So
one of the last questions we have for you, because I can see you yawning. Perpetual Doom.
Yes.
What? I mean, because if everyone who's been following you lately, obviously you've been trying. I mean, you got the peripheral guitar, so obviously you're trying to like ripping solos and shit, obviously, because that's the only reason you buy a custom-made guitar like that. But what made you want to restart the band up now, like all these years later?
I didn't restart the band. It was never my band, right?
Okay.
So it was Ken Roberts' band. Ken and Bill and Steve and myself were Perpetual Doom. I joined their band. It was never like my thing. I don't think I wrote maybe a couple riffs that never actually got recorded onto anything. We had done we were starting to do another demo after we released our demo tape, and it was on a tape. It was released in 1995. And we were gonna record some other stuff, and then they decided they wanted to do Korn style band, like they wanted to do nu metal. And that was really when kind of nu metal was hitting off, really kind of starting to hit its stride. And I wanted to do death metal, so I was like, no, I don't want to. So I quit. I was like, I'm not doing I don't want to be in a nu metal band. I want to do Swedish death metal. You guys want to do Korn, blah blah blah. It just wasn't my thing. I wanted to be in that metal, that European Swedish style death metal stuff. So they wanted to re-record some stuff. And so they asked me if I'd sing on it and do my parts and stuff. And I was like, yeah, sure. So I don't see any more Perpetual Doom coming out from me. Really, because, if I want to write something heavy, I can do it in All That Remains. I mean, we kind of proved that with, we put out a record, when we put out Victim of the New Disease, Fuck Love is a pretty heavy song. Wasteland's pretty heavy. There's Blood I Spill is heavy. You know, Broken is pretty heavy. If I want to do other types of music, All That Remains has we've made sure that All That Remains allows us that opportunity, whether it be doing something like Fuck Love or doing a cover song like
Thunder Rolls,
like the Thunder Rolls. We've made sure that we weren't going to be stuck doing one thing. We've done things that have, you know, really pushed the boundaries of what a metal band is supposed to do, and that's been by design. And so I don't see more Perpetual Doom coming from, at least from me, and any time in the near future. That's
because, as Josta would say, you got that prom core money. Prom core. Yeah, you know, What If I Was Nothing? You got that prom core. Like,
well, you know, I mean, you know, it's when we were doing What If I Was Nothing, Adam, like once we got the song kind of together, Adam goes, that sounds like mortgage payments, you know. And you know, it was number 2, and you know, I'm not complaining, you know. We've had some commercial success that I'm very grateful that we've had, and it's allowed us to continue to make records long after a lot of bands that were coming up with us have since disappeared. And I'm,
and at this point,
fortunate for that.
You've weeded out all the people that are upset that there's a musical change.
No,
you know, or that there's variation. I don't even say
they're still there.
I mean, some of them are there. Like, I mean, every single time you post anything, I'm sure there's a you guys should put out the Fall of Ideals Part 2. You know, like
every single time. And no matter how much we try to do the Fall of Ideals Part 2, it'll never make them feel like the Fall of Ideals made them feel. Well, that's one thing that people seem to misunderstand. They're not asking you, when people say make this record again or do that record again, they're not asking you to actually make that record again. They're asking you to make them feel like they felt when they heard that record.
So talking to Dennis from Refuse, that's what he said about anything that they would have ever come out with after Shape of Punk to Come. Everyone wants them to put out something that makes them feel like when Shape of Punk to Come came out. And he goes, so it didn't matter what the fuck we put out. We would have failed because it's not that. And I think that honestly is the thing that people don't understand is when they say what they think they want, it's more of make me feel, it's almost like The Simpsons with the elixir, make me feel young again. And it's like, I can't do that.
Exactly. We'll never be a new band to you again. Like once you've heard us, once you've heard All That Remains is never going to be a new discovery. We could put out a record that you like. We probably can do that. We can probably write songs that you'll dig. But we'll never put out a record that's going to make you feel like the Fall of Ideals made you feel, because you know who we are. You've heard our stuff. We've done everything. We've done everything that we could to put out the Fall of Ideals again. We've gone and done records with the same producers. We've gone and done records in the same studio. You know, A War You Cannot Win we did with Adam at Zing Studio in Westfield. We wrote, the only difference is we didn't write it in my mom's basement. You know, that's
the difference. That's why I didn't hit the same.
That's why.
Mom approved.
It was the same guys, the same people writing the record, same people writing the riffs and the music. You know, I mean, Shannon was on the Fall of Ideals and Shannon's not in the band, but you know, Jason is every bit as not taking anything away from Shannon, but Jason is every bit as capable as Shannon. You know, there's not, I don't think there's stuff that Shannon could play that Jason couldn't play. You know, so it's not like, you know, and Shannon only wrote the drums. He didn't write the riffs and he didn't write the vocals, and you know, that was me and Ollie and Mike. So you know, we've done everything that we could to recreate it. The only thing that we can't do is be new to you again. You know,
until you release that Sarah McLachlan cover.
Yeah,
I'm waiting. I want do that, please. Like, within reason. Don't tell me like $10,000 or some weird shit. Please tell me. Please tell me what it would take to get you to cover that Sarah McLachlan song that you and I talked about forever ago. Where you're like, I just want to like throw some weird shit out there and do this. It wasn't. wasn't in the arms of the angels. It was
probably Pat. It was probably
it was
Passion.
it was
I think it's called Passion, right?
I think so. It wasn't like a big single. I remember that much. When I went and looked it up, I was like, oh, it's not a single. It's kind of an album cut. Because I remember being like, oh, because I asked you, because I had asked you at the end, like where I was like at the end of the first interview, I was like, oh, like I think I had said something like, oh, what's something you would like to do maybe that like people wouldn't expect, and you're like, oh, I'd love to do a Sarah McLachlan cover. And I was like, oh shit. And then you were like, or Bjork. I think was another one you had brought up too. And I was like, I would be down for you doing either of those, because I feel like people are like, what the fuck? Not only is this not follow my deals, but this isn't metal, and now I'm really pissed.
Yeah, you know, that happens.
Also,
I love Sarah McLachlan. I mean, a lot of people know that. I love female artists. I think that
did I recommend to you to check out Imogene Heap and or Frou Frou, whatever?
No, you've not.
Oh my God, you got to check that out. That is like some of my favorite like female vocal stuff. It is amazing.
What's it called?
Her name is Imogene Heap. IMOGEANHEAP. She is a solo artist, but she put out, I think after her first or second solo record, did a collaboration with, and I might have the guy's name wrong, but they did a record called Frou or Frou Frou, FROU, called Details. Mm-hmm. That is like, I think you post, it was either you or Doc, I don't know. Sometimes like your posts kind of align with each other with the themes you're going with. But I think you were like on this thing of like, what's one of your favorite female vocalists that you like, guilty pleasure or whatever. And it is always one of mine. That Details record is one of mine. It fits every single mood, genre, like not necessarily genre, but it fits every mood or season, more to the point. It fits every season. So like in the winter, it's perfect winter time if you're driving on a snowy highway, which living in, Connecticut, East Coast, like obviously you'll experience. Basically, it's great for every season. Spring, summer, fall, winter, rain, sleet, whatever, doesn't fucking matter. That record hits every vibe that you want. It's kind of an electro pop kind of thing. Great sweeping choruses, vocal melodies, just everything's there. And if you end up falling down the rabbit hole of Imogene Heap, or anyone listening to this right now, or when we post the audio down the road, go check out the documentary for Ellipsis. It's her making the record that she was making, and she's such a phenomenal just producer. Like there's a scene I'm thinking of, and I'm literally closing my eyes thinking about it, where she's running up and down. She bought her old childhood house, which is like a round barn, and then put a studio upstairs. And there's a scene where she's running up the steps with a fucking stick, just she takes that, samples it, cuts it into pieces, flips it, reverses it like Missy Elliott. And then like when you hear it like in the bridge or whatever of this song, you're like, the fuck, that's what that is. Like it's just songwriting and production on a level that you're just like mind blown. And then even now, like she does, and I just call them TED Talks because I don't know what the fuck you call them, but like she has like technology where she puts, sorry, I gotta find my camera. She puts like these gloves on her hands, and she's able to manipulate her voice with these gloves, and it's fucking wild, dude. Like it is some gnarly shit that is on some next level stuff that I'm not seeing in anything else other than what she's doing. And you're just like, you win. Like,
I'll check it out.
No one is doing this shit. So like, I try my hardest to like push people in her direction, because it is just outwardly what she does. Cool. And I know for vocalists, like there's so much that she does where it should probably make you start approaching vocals in a completely different way, where you're not looking at your voice as of, I can do this register, this key, this whatever. It's like, well, if I take this, manipulate it, and then flip it, chop it, whatever, like you're looking at it as an instrument more so than just straight up what it is. And it's, like I said, she is approaching shit on a way different level than I've ever seen anyone other than like Bjork. And I love female vocalists probably as much as you do, like where I'm like, hail to the queen. Like there's so many great female vocalists in the fucking world that it just is baffling. So that is always something I will push so hard for people to check out, because there's just such a wealth of music and ideas that will hopefully inspire other people. But I feel like I've monopolized this conversation, and the whole reason I want to do this so Dan can actually talk to you as well. So I don't know if Dan has anything to kind of end this with, because
I listened to some old At the Gates records today.
Yes.
I don't know.
Solid too. I mean, I agree with that. I fuck with that.
Yeah.
Which record?
Slaughter to the Soul is probably my favorite
Yeah.
one. I know it's like the biggest one, but like
It's great.
it definitely changed the way I looked at music, you know.
Yeah.
I was like, holy crap, everything doesn't have to just be like Florida, like Morbid Angel, you know, super heavy stuff. So
when I heard that record, when I heard Slaughter the Soul, like I wasn't in Shadows Fall yet.
yeah,
And that was like, I was like, that's the shit.
yeah.
Like that's the kind of stuff that I want to do. And then I heard Shadows Fall, and I was like, that band's gonna do something. Blah blah blah. That band's gonna be, you know, really cool. And I was.
Are you
really,
surprised
really,
at how that band has the legacy of that band has lived on? Are you surprised?
I'm not sure what you mean.
So I feel like Shadows Fall is one of those bands that a lot of people like, and I think Dan, you know, he did on his other podcast did the discography of that band and talked about the lineage of that band. And I think, you know, from a lot of people who are our age and remember Shadows Fall from the beginning to now, look at that band and hold them in such a high regard, but just as a band that never really broke for a multitude of reasons, whether just right place, wrong time, label issues, whatever, you know, you could put on it. But I feel like it's interesting because I feel like they've kind of grown to be bigger than maybe they were at their height now at this point, because like they've been gone for so long that people are like, man, Shadows Fall. Like it's just been built to this holy shit level, basically. Like some of these bands who go away and people, they didn't have I don't want to say an opportunity. They didn't have that misstep for a lot of fans. And they just,
Did they go away?
Technically they're on a hiatus, but it's almost like Overcast. Overcast technically isn't done. They're still on an extended hiatus until they decide to get back together and write some new music. But it's a thing where I feel like Shadows Fall, there are so many people who are wanting more new Shadows Fall and that just listen to the old stuff and just go and like are clamoring like, I need more, I need more, I need more. But it's almost like that thing of like, well, where were you 10 years ago? Like when the band really needed that extra push of sales and popularity to get over that hump of where the major label thought that they should have been and all that kind of stuff.
It took like heavy music a long time to get that level of mainstream acceptance. You know?
But that's kind of what I'm saying though, is like right now, I feel like the quote unquote mainstream heavy metal scene wants a band like Shadows Fall to come back. And so it's created this interesting legacy for the band where it's like the legacy is bigger than I think, and it's kind of almost a revisionist history where it's like you see like with a thing like Return to the Pit where like people will be like, oh my god, Converge and Shai Hulud and Overcast and whatever, and then it's like the reality was, yeah, there was fucking 27 people there. But now when you see the flyer, you're like, oh my God, that must have been like 10,000 people beating the shit out of each other for the whole 4 hours. And it's like, that's not the reality. And so
I was at those shows, man. It wasn't the romanticizing of bands and the scene and stuff. That's what it is. It's romanticizing, you know, it's fondly remembering, you know, I don't know. I definitely do not have my finger on the pulse of what the metal scene wants. And so
follow my deals too, dude.
I mean, yeah, right. I certainly am not in any position to say this band would do this or wouldn't do that or whatever. I have no idea. I'm so far removed from it that it's not anything that I should be commenting on. And even if I did, it would be so uninformed as to be completely and totally devoid of any value. So if there's a demand for it, then, you know, and the guys should get back together and do it. But I don't know that there is. And I'm not plugged into any scene at all. I don't even really know what kind of scene there is nowadays. There's certainly not an underground scene the way that there was 20 years ago. I think
Furnace Fest was like the closest to the underground scene I've seen like that in a while.
Well, yeah, but Furnace Fest was also kind of the exact romanticizing of Like there were more people checking out those bands that reunited for Furnace Fest for that festival than probably would have saw the band in their so-called heyday. But I don't know. I prefer a lot of, because I'm much the same way, as even though I'm supposedly this metal commentator and somebody that talks about all that stuff. I'm pretty far removed as well, as far as like I listen to records and I talk about them, but you know, yeah, I don't know what kind of scene is even there, if there is one, and the scene that is there, it seems like more of just a Twitter thing. Like, you know, it's just not the way that it used to be. And it's not like a get off my lawn statement or anything.
I mean, if y'all ready to talk about this,
Jesus,
got you all day long.
Got
you all day long.
What it is?
It's a TLC.
Oh, TLC, yeah. The thing is, like, when it comes to getting people that would be interested in those bands to leave their house, that is a tall order, because all the people that, you know, were into, you know, whether it be Shia or Shadows Fall or whatever, all the people that were into those bands 15 years ago got mortgages and kids and gotta be up for work.
Yep.
So it's real easy to type, "Man, I would be there," on Twitter.
Sure.
But getting people to detach their butt from the couch, that's a whole different animal. And you can look like you got a lot of heat on Twitter because Twitter is global. And then that show is only going to be in one place. Or, you know, the 30,000 people that look like they want to be there, you know, when you break that up over a full tour and you do it in one country, the shows end up having 150 people, 200 people. Right. You know,
interested, going.
Yeah, you know, exactly. You know, that's the thing. It's real easy to say I'll be there on Twitter.
What time do you guys go on? That's how you know your buddy's not going to show up.
Yeah. What time you guys go on?
Yeah, you guys go on 11, right?
That's why I love Every Time I Die. Like Jordan, at least Jordan is unapologetic. He's like, we're on this tour. We go on at this time. Like he tells people when they're going on. The rest of the package be damned. And I'm just kind of like, I kind of dig that. Like, I dig the fact that it's like they're at least not doing that whole thing of like, show up for the whole tour and find out when we play. It's like, fuck it. Because they at least understand that, like, if you at least come out and see us, we still got the money for the package. The package is getting paid. And it doesn't fucking matter if you leave because we got your fucking money. So fuck it. Give them the information that they want. Yeah. Let the money come in. And who gives a goddamn who does what with the information?
Yeah,
although
telling people to come to the whole show, if they don't want to be at the show, if you tell them, "Oh, I'll come for the whole show," and you don't tell them what time you play, they might not show up at all. You better give them what they're asking for. Don't fight with the crowd. You know.
That's why I've always loved, like, on the last couple of tours that Easy did on with the at least out here, 4 dates with Fall Out Boy and Arenas, one of which was out here in Grand Rapids. And then they did the Mastodon Coheed tour as the opener in Sheds. And they were straight up like, it was so great. Like, at least the Shed tour where they're like, yeah, we play it for like 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. And people were like, fuck, man, I don't get out of work. And they're like, well, show up. We play for like a half hour. Get there if you can. And it's like,
that's what it is.
Like, I at least, like, that, again, kind of going back to what we were saying earlier, I appreciate at least the honesty of them just being like, this is what we do. This is where we're at. This is how we roll. Fuck it, warts and all. Like, it's maybe not be pretty, but like, we're at least going to be honest with you. So you're not like buying a $60, $90 ticket and being like, oh, I didn't know you guys were only playing a 30-minute set to start. It's like, no, our set's from 6 to 6:30, basically when doors open. Show up early if you want to see us. Sorry.
90% of why I don't go to shows anymore, though. $60 or $90. When I was younger, and we're talking about romanticizing the old hardcore scene, I remember being able to see like I remember $8, $10, $15, and I would see what would go on to be considered the greatest bands of all time. And I think
all that remains.
What I miss about that specifically, though, is that like nowadays you'll go and play a show. Like, how many shows have you played where maybe they'll pull some locals in or pull some like regional bands in or something to open up the show? And every single one of them sounds exactly the same.
Yeah, that happens.
And when I was younger, But when I was younger, it was like I'd go to a show and like, you know, a hardcore band might open, you know, get everybody going, and then like a rock band will come on and play, and like they'll have their fans and or whatever, and then like maybe a punk band comes on, metal band comes on. Like I miss kind of the excitement of not really knowing what I'm going to expect. But I think all these people that are like, stay for the whole show, they're trying to like get people to also experience that in a time where that doesn't happen anymore.
My favorite story that has been told on this, it was your podcast though, is when we were talking to Brock from 36, and he was like, so we're doing this tour. I don't remember who the headlining band was. And he goes, but Bury Your Dead came on halfway through the tour. I think he said like, we're in the Midwest. I go on to check out the band, but like, that's basically the package opener. And I go in and I just hear Bury Your Fucking Dead. And I just see the room fucking explode. And I go, oh, fuck. And then Brock goes, so after that show, maybe the second show, we go up to them and we're like, hey, if you guys want to like, you know, play our spot and we'll open, that's totally cool. Cause like, how the fuck do you follow that? And
well,
like, I was like,
you're going up, you're dealing with, you know, a band like Bury Your Dead. Their whole deal is, how can we get people to mosh?
yeah.
That's the whole point.
And Brock realized, like, we're not that band, so like, go ahead and play after us because we're not trying to follow that. I just remember being like, that's so commendable, at least on his part, to be like, yeah, fuck, we're not going to follow that very well. So we'll go ahead and open the package, and you guys can go on after us. Like, I feel like that's also doesn't happen very often anymore. Where people are like, well, we earned this spot and we're playing it. God damn it.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, you know, we did some shows with Unearth last year.
I was there.
And Unearth is not a band that's fun to play after. You know, you really have to show up. You know, it's not a band like Unearth or like Bury Your Dead that really shines live and is really that high energy, and their songs are really designed for, you know, for the live show. It can be daunting going after a band like that. You know, especially a band like us, who we don't write songs specifically for live. We don't write songs to make people mosh. We like to have heavy parts and stuff, but we don't write songs specifically for that. I'm much more interested in having people sing along and connect with the lyrics than, you know, trying to be the band that gets people to, you know, mosh and stuff. That's just not our thing, you know?
Well, yeah, and as soon as you stop being that band for 5 minutes, those people all go away.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. I mean, songs have more longevity than breakdowns, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
My last question, and we'll let you go unless Dan's got one after me. 6. I was listening to it today. It honestly popped up on my iTunes like weekly playlist thing that gives me every Tuesday, and 6 popped up, and I was reminded of Guitar Hero, and like having seen you, like I said earlier, like going to interview you like the last couple of tours you did on this last, you know, album and a half, or last 2 album cycles, basically seeing the reaction to that song specifically. And seeing, like, especially like the clean part where people do that kind of shit or whatever, and seeing the sustainability of that song. And I have to assume that a lot of it is because of video game, that game.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's one of those where, do you still, all these years later, get people coming to you, go like, I found your band because of this video game?
Constantly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All the time. And people come to the stream, and it
got
to the point where so I open my stream like as close to the way that we open shows as we can. Like I have like 8-bit All That Remains that plays, 8-bit music that plays while with the stream starting, and then, you know, when I'm ready to go and I've got everything set up, I go ahead and I turn that music down before, you know, and it still says stream starting, and I'll start running whatever song I'm going to play. And that goes while the stream's starting. So it's almost like a digital kabuki, you know, the thing that drops down. And then right before my singing part comes in, I, you know, turn on my camera and go from the stream starting to me, and I go into whatever the song is, trying to emulate a live show as close as I can. And so I do one song, and then the second song I do is 6, because every single night someone's asking for 6. That song is I mean, it's one of our biggest songs. It's definitely not our biggest, but it's definitely one of our biggest. And I think a big part of the reason is because of the fact that it was, it was such a difficult song to play on expert that people just drilled it into their head. The clean bridge in it is really melodic, and it was a great piece that Ollie wrote, and
I can see it flashing across the screen as you're saying it. Skittles falling down the screen.
And yeah, so like he did a great job, and I think that song's a testament to his musicianship, without a question. But people remember it because it's melodic, because it was aggressive, and because they had to play it 17 trillion times to be able to master it on expert. The only song that was hard, there was a Dragon Force song on that, and that was the only song that was harder. So there's only one song that was harder than 6, and that was Dragon Force's song. And so if you could beat 6 on master, or whatever the hardest level was, that was something that you could be proud of. And so people just drilled it into their heads for it.
Did you ever tour with Dragon Force and be like, yo, I think, like, obviously your song's harder, but like, we got like the second hardest song on that fucking game. Like, was there ever like a little bit of like playful ribbing about it?
No. We did multiple tours with him. We did a tour in the U.S. with him. We supported him in the U.S. We supported him in the U.K. And we did. I think they were on Ozfest when we did it. So we did a bunch of touring with him. But it was never. There was never any kind of like, oh, this is your song's harder, ours is blah blah blah. None of that ever at all.
I just figured maybe there'd be some playful ribbing, about it being like, oh, we got like the second hardest song other than yours, but I mean, fuck it, like no one can play yours. Yours is like the bullshit mode where if you fuck it up at the end of the game, no one's gonna care. It doesn't like stop the game like ours, where like people boo you.
No, we never really got into poking at that kind of stuff.
Was there a lot of back and forth whether you guys should include the song on that? Like, because at the time, like, you were on the first iteration of that, so like, was there a lot of back and forth of like, should we do this? Should we not?
No, we had never been on a video game at the time, and so when they were like, hey, they want you to be on this video game, I initially thought that it was going to be This Calling, because This Calling was the lead single, and it had the melodic chorus, and it kind of stood out as obviously a single. And they were like, no, they want 6. I was like, they want the song that starts out with the blast beats and the scream. And I didn't know anything about Guitar Hero. So I didn't know the Guitar Hero 1. I didn't know what Guitar Hero 1 was. So I was like, that's what they want. And the label was like, yep. And I'm like, okay, cool. We're going to be on a video game. That's the coolest thing in the world. So, there was no complaining or anything. I was just surprised. And I was like, whatever you guys fucking want, I don't care. Just put it on your video game. This is the coolest thing ever. Look,
it's gonna be Weak Will.
Check it out. Yeah, right. The Weak Will.
There you go.
So.
Dan, you got anything to wrap it up? Bring it home?
Now my wife's stomping around upstairs, so I'm probably gotta. But no, it was a good time, and
cheers, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming on and doing this in a digital form and on your off night from streaming.
Yeah, no sweat at all. It's cool. It's a good talk.
And hopefully when everything goes back to normal, we can do another one of these in person or something.
Hopefully all the cities in the country don't burn down.
There you go.
Hey, I can at least tell you Grand Rapids has not
yet.
and at least St. Louis hasn't.
We have an army of rednecks out here. We'll probably be okay.
Randy and all the Lima Guy dudes are probably out there. Who knows?
Right. So, all right, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye.
And we're ending.